Yes, thank you. I'm honored to be here. I wish I could be there in person, not only to meet everybody, and it's certainly a different experience to see your faces and the reactions and those kinds of things. But your campus looks beautiful, and the facilities look fantastic. And I hope that at some point down the road we have an opportunity to interact a little more in person. And I'd love to have the opportunity to spend time at your country. And I have traveled quite extensively. Unfortunately, haven't made it to Pakistan. I kind of missed the middle. It looks like I've done some of the Middle East, Israel, Jordan, um, Egypt, and then I've done Nepal, India, Bhutan, those kinds of places. But somehow I kind of missed the middle of the Middle
No,
East.
you're most welcome, and the experience that you will have here will be very fulfilling. One of the most hospitable countries, and yes, the culture, the sights, the views, everything very
Yes.
unique and very welcoming.
That's great. Well, I hopefully, again, once things settle down, I hope to be able to recreate this at some
Yes.
point in person down the road. And again, I'm very thrilled to be here today. Just want to make sure, are you able to see my screen?
No, you'll have to share it again.
Gotcha. Okay, good. I thought there was something a little funny there. Let me go back. Uh, Now we're ready.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, again, I'm very thrilled to be here, and am grateful to be able to share a few of my thoughts and some of my own experiences, a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey that we're all taking here relatively together. We had a good background. I don't want to talk about a ton about me. The one thing I do want to highlight, though, is the last bullet point that I put up there, and it's called Education for Humanity. And that's something that I've been recently involved with. It's really been life-changing for me. I had created a series of online courses for um, a business partnership that Arizona State has with Uber. And through that experience then was discovered by a group called Education for Humanity. What they do is they create online courses for displaced refugees in developing countries. And so I had an opportunity to travel to Uganda, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, and meet with members of the ecosystem. So the refugees, the entrepreneurs themselves, incubators, accelerators, some of the educational institutions there, some finance providers, people kind of involved in that process, and realized the way that I've kind of been approaching entrepreneurship had been, and entrepreneurship education had been a little bit backwards, and really kind of missed out on understanding the process that local residents go through and some of the challenges and opportunities they face. And so that kind of has broadened my mind to look for other methods for teaching. And that's where I came across Entrepreneurship Plus, and talked to Dr. Shahid, and that's how I was introduced to him. And he was very gracious to share with me his experiences and his perspective and some of the things you folks are learning there. And so it's been an inspiration to me to see how other people approach this, and to really kind of get into the minds of the students and understand hopefully the things that you're focused on. And so that anyway has been really a fantastic thing. And a couple of the places we're looking at actually are Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon. So a little bit, I guess, somewhat in your neighborhood. At least it looks like that from the state's perspective. So I, again, hope to spend some more time. I actually had a trip planned to Jordan for next month, a study abroad where I was going to take some students over and teach an entrepreneurial workshop. Obviously, that got canceled, but hopefully the next time I'm in the region, we'll have an opportunity to meet face to face. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about my own journey too. And so I recently authored a book. It's called The Startup of Seinfeld. And this has probably been my most tangible exploration into the entrepreneurial process. And I don't want to bore you with all the details of the book, but I will bring it up a little bit as I talk about some of my experiences and those kinds of things. But to illustrate, I want to talk about a little bit about what I call the entrepreneurial process. And this is very basic. I imagine these are similar things that you've probably already kind of gone through, but I want to highlight one particular one and talk about some of these things. But as I think about, once you've decided to become an entrepreneur, once you want to look for a business to start, usually it starts with identifying opportunities. And how I define opportunities are, it's a market failure. There's something that people want, customers want, and that's something that the market is not providing, or providing it in an efficient manner, in a cost friendly manner, something is broken, something is missing there. And so it's up to the entrepreneur then to first identify what those opportunities are. This next then is using your experiences, your passions, your interests, your perspective to generate creative solutions to those opportunities or problems that you've identified in the marketplace. And this becomes a very personal, hopefully very passionate journey for you as you combine your own experiences and your own perspectives to problems people are facing in the marketplace. The next then comes with the opportunity to assess or quantify risk, hopefully with the goal, again, being to minimize that risk as much as possible. And that can come from, creating MVPs, going through a lean entrepreneurship process, creating prototypes, talking with customers. All of those things are involved with this kind of assessing, quantifying, and minimizing risk activity. Next thing is you have to assemble resources. And this is usually one of the often more challenging parts for entrepreneurship, is coming up with, once you've kind of identified what the solution is, what the problem is, what your solution is going to be, now it's up to you to go do it. And that's, I think, one of the more exciting parts of that as well, is you have to kind of sometimes rely on your own ingenuity, sometimes rely on your own efforts to learn about things and to figure out how to do it. You don't have a boss there telling you what to do. You maybe even don't have a lot of market experience in the fact that this is kind of a new thing to really draw upon. And so a lot of times it's difficult to assemble these resources, but that's, again, part of the fun of the challenge of entrepreneurship, is overcoming those difficulties and finding ways to assemble those resources yourself. I saw somebody raise their hand. Please feel free to shoot a question, unmute yourself and go ahead.
I think that was an error, Dr. Livengood. Please continue.
Okay, no problem. But yeah, feel
Yeah.
free to stop me. I tend to kind of ramble on a little bit, so feel free to stop me if you have any questions as we go through this. And yeah, Taskin, if you can kind of help me monitor the chats and those kinds of things, that would be extremely helpful. So after you've assembled your resources, and again, this might come from external parties. This could be financing, this could be mentorship, this could be partnerships. These resources kind of come in various configurations. And I've left this relatively generic enough that it can be applied to lots of different processes you might go through, whether this is nonprofit, whether it has a social element, whether it's just improving something that doesn't actually turn into a business. Really, a lot of times we kind of define entrepreneurship as creating a new business, but I think we can be entrepreneurial in lots of aspects of our lives, not simply for a business purpose. But since we are in a business school and we're talking about this entrepreneurial process, that obviously impacts as well. As then the last part of this is presenting our solution, what we come up with, to an audience. Now, as I said, sometimes this comes in the form of a new business, but not necessarily, depending on what it is that our goals and objectives happen to be. So today I wanted to focus on the first step a little bit of identifying opportunities. So again, now that you've decided to be an entrepreneur, what are some sources of innovative ideas? Where do you go to look for your inspiration? And so I just wanted to kind of briefly talk through some models and talk through some of the things that I've done to find some of my inspiration as well. Hopefully it can be an inspiration to you as well, as you are kind of trying to figure out exactly what path you want to take and what problem you are trying to solve. And so I put these up here, and this is relatively a straightforward kind of a process, but just some sources, potential sources of innovative ideas. The first one is what we call black swan events. Now, this came from, I think it was a biologist who, his world, he'd only seen white swans. In his whole life, he'd only seen white swans. In fact, this might actually have been Charles Darwin. Anyway, he was going out, he looked at it, he saw somewhere a black swan that he'd never seen before. And so we use this to kind of highlight very low likelihood, but big impact types of events. So the fact that there existed a black swan, that really opened the world to evolution and those kinds of Mother Nature and the things that she does. Right now, we're living through a black swan event. I think this global pandemic of COVID and these things, the coronavirus, I don't think anyone could have predicted this a year ago. I certainly couldn't. This really hit the world by storm, and it's obviously changed a lot of the ways that we interact with people, the ways that we do our normal events and activities. And so, But what that does, though, is it creates a lot of opportunities. And that's something I think is a little bit counterintuitive when we think about entrepreneurship, is that we should love change. We should look for problems, because that then opens itself up for a solution that we can provide. And so as entrepreneurs, again, as horrible as the deaths and the economic impacts and those kinds of things that the pandemic is having, looking at it from a silver lining perspective, there are lots of opportunities that have been created from this situation. And hopefully, as alert entrepreneurs, we're looking for opportunities and ways to fix and make things better, and not focus on the doom and gloom, but actually make things a little bit better based on these particular events. The next is simply the idea of mismatch. So this is where customers want something, but they can't get it. And so there's a mismatch with what the market is providing and what customers want. There's a gap right there in the middle. And we as entrepreneurs need to insert ourselves into that gap and solve something and provide something that's better, faster, cheaper than what already exists. The next category is what I call process needs. So oftentimes, the greatest entrepreneurial opportunities come from our own lives. So come from things that we notice there's a mismatch. There's something that we want and it's not there. And then we can recognize that as a process of something we're trying to accomplish and not being an effective solution. And that's something we can provide. A very quick example of this, if you've heard of Post-it notes, I should have some here actually around here, but those little square self-adhesive little Post-it notes that you can stick on things, that was actually, if you know the origin of that, that was kind of an accident. There was an employee at 3M, which is the company that invented Post-it notes, and he was actually singing in a church choir, and they had a hymn book, and he was trying to get from one hymn to the next. And if you kind of fumbled around, sometimes you have to move it relatively quickly. You don't have a lot of time. If he used just a piece of paper, would he open from one to the other? That would fall out, and he would lose his place. Using a paper clip would damage the paper, and so he had a need that needed to be solved. And so he went to his engineers, and somebody in the engineering department had created really ineffective glue. They were trying to make really strong glue, and this glue only worked kind of partially, and it stuck for a little while, but not perfectly. And anyway, because this person recognized a process need, was able to put those two things together and create Post-it notes, which happens to be pretty successful as far as an innovation goes. The last one is what I'll call changes in market, in demographics, in perceptions, in technology. So changes that occur in the marketplace. And I'll very quickly, another thing that we use instead of changes is the term trends. And so those of you who've taken a strategic management course have probably heard the acronym PESTLE. And that's a way we use to kind of organize what these trends or these changes in market, demographics, perceptions, technology might be. And so very quickly, I want to kind of walk through this PESTLE here. I see some chats. I don't know if there's anything, if you have questions. Okay, so I do actually see a question here. So the question comes from Asim. Says every startup is he said this privately, but I'm happy to share that with everybody else. Every startup is risky. How do you quantify risk? And that's a great question. So very quickly, we talk about two things. There's the idea of risk, and then there's the idea of uncertainty. So risk you can actually put a number to. And so quantifying risk is looking what else is out there and seeing how well it relates. And then I think what's more important than quantifying that risk is realizing what you are comfortable with. What level of risk are you comfortable with? So if I say, hey, there's, maybe if I look at all the other businesses that have done something very similar and 50% of them have succeeded, 50% have failed, well, I could kind of say, well, mine's very similar to that. It's a 50-50 chance that mine's also going to be successful. Are you comfortable with that type of risk? Some people say, hey, if it's a 20% chance of success, I'm willing to take that. Other people say, no, I need at least a 70% chance of risk in order to take the plunge and actually follow something. But that's really kind of an individual level of how, first of all, quantifying risk, it's relating it and comparing it to what other comparable issues or companies or businesses are out there in the marketplace, and then the other is how comfortable are you in that world for that. So hopefully that helps out there a little bit. So please keep these questions coming here, and we're happy to discuss this. So anyways, we talked to the pestle. The first one is the idea of, let me get back here, political and government trends or changes. So right now in the United States, we just had a presidential election, and so things are changing as the political parties are changing, going from one to another. And so the ideologies and the principles and the objectives that one political party has now switching to another is going to change. That creates opportunities. Because of that change, because of that difference, maybe if I recognize that, I can take advantage of some of these political or governmental shifts in the marketplace. For example, and we'll get to this a little bit here as we go along, some of these kind of combine. For example, the Democratic Party, we have the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So the Democratic Party seems to have a lot more pro-environmental types of policies. And so if I then want to create some kind of environmentally friendly car, it seems that under a Democratic Party regime or political situation, those are much more likely to be funded and supported and accepted by the market as opposed to the Republican Party. And now that's always not hard and fast, but that's an example of what that might look like. The second is economic. Now, right now we're going through economic tension. A lot of people, there's unemployment. Big companies are going bankrupt or having troubles. And that can be a challenge. That's a horrible situation for everybody. But we need to look at what opportunities that provides. Maybe there's an opportunity to lend money to others. Maybe the economy now is going to change so that it's a little bit less focused on imports, and we focus a lot more on homegrown types of products. So whatever those trends happen to be, it's important for us to recognize what those are and create an entrepreneurial solution to solve that particular problem. The next one is socio-cultural. So these are trends in what people tend to like, their tastes, their preferences. And so one example, I don't know how much, I use this example here, the idea of gluten. So gluten is found in a lot of bread. It's found in wheat. 10 years ago, people probably couldn't even spell gluten. They had no idea what gluten was. Now, those who have a legit allergy to them, it's called celiac disease. If you actually are allergic to gluten, they certainly knew what that was. But since that time, in the last 10 years, gluten all of a sudden has become this horrible thing. Oh, I don't want gluten. I mean, it has to be gluten-free. Don't let me near gluten. I got to stay away from gluten. This is a socio-cultural trend that has capitalized, that is kind of at least swept the United States. And so then if I want to create something that is gluten-free, or some kind of something in that range, that's taking advantage of those trends that have changed in the marketplace. The next one is technological. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but using Zoom, for example, and meeting virtually, that's a trend that's taken place. And so we need to then come up with interesting opportunities or how to capitalize on using that for our own entrepreneurial endeavors. And I have some examples from my own life and the book that I launched that kind of helps talk about some of these technological trends and how I didn't create that technology, but I'm capitalizing on the trends that exist. The next one, as I kind of alluded to before, is environmental. So as we think about climate change, as we think about certain endangered species, for example, maybe those are opportunities where we have perhaps a different, not purely profit motive for starting our new business. That might create a trend for us. And then the last one is legal. Now, these tend to change quite often, but there might be some legal statutes or things that used to be illegal now might be legal, that opens up opportunities for us as entrepreneurs to take advantage. So I want to share then a little clip from my book, actually, and this is kind of the premise of how I created my book. This is an educational video that actually comes from the show Seinfeld. I don't know how many Seinfeld fans there are, but it's one of my favorite shows. And anyway, I think this is an interesting clip to kind of let us into the world of kind of peek in a little bit of identifying opportunities and how we might be able to capitalize on those. So let's give this a whirl, and hopefully this multimedia approach will work. So I might actually have to stop share my other screen here. Let me figure this out. So I'd love to hear thoughts from the audience. Any revelations or any insights or anything that we maybe learn from that little clip? No need to be shy. There's no wrong answer. Okay, so we have a thought that things go viral quickly. Yeah, so we saw kind of one person do it, then another person do it, and it all kind of came back, and it wasn't even really marketed. Um, it was just so there's some kind of ideas of marketing strategy. It wasn't a commercial. It wasn't, you didn't have to spend a lot of money. It's just one of those things that word of mouth kind of happened around. I see some people talk about the idea is being able to see things that happen around you. Um, yeah, and the idea that first people say something and say you want to hear something weird. I think it's interesting that Elaine's and Jerry's kind of attitude was pretty negative, right? That wasn't very entrepreneurial of them. They looked at this and they saw that's weird, that's crazy. I would never do something like that. But then they see that trend change. They see it actually become a lot more possible in the marketplace. Now, so if you saw that happen, so there's a saying in Persia, whenever one sheep goes somewhere, all of them will follow. I like it. That's beautiful. Now, so if you are an entrepreneur and you see this happening, you see these sheep following each other, what are some solutions you could come up with? What would you do as an entrepreneur to capitalize on this trend? Any flashes of inspiration? We'll try not to steal your idea, although if it's really fantastic, I'm going to take notes and see if I can implement that. So one thing I think of is, so if I'm again trying to, if I see this, well, maybe I create a portable, recyclable, there we go, eco-friendly cutlery. So when I sell a Snickers bar, it comes with its own little knife and fork that won't harm the environment. Or maybe I have a little spoon that comes with M&Ms that's attached on the back. So anyway, so again, I don't need to own Snickers. I don't have to produce M&Ms. But if I can then take advantage of the trends of how people use those in the marketplace, I can maybe then create something that is actually going to be successful. So those are opportunities that exist. And so, but the key is we have to pay attention, and we can't look at something. And maybe if we say it's weird, look at it and say, but this is a popular thing. This is what people want. This is listening to the customer and kind of getting in the minds and hearts of the customers. Maybe I can come up with a solution that will solve their needs and their wants. And so that's, again, oftentimes the best entrepreneurial ideas and opportunities come from just looking right around, either our own experiences or those that are around us, that these trends upon which we can capitalize. So hopefully that's a fun little example of what we do. And honestly, and I can talk about this a little bit, but that's exactly what my book is. And so the idea is that I want to teach entrepreneurship, and I use these clips from Seinfeld as a context to kind of help students or readers better understand a little bit what I'm talking about. And so that's kind of where the genesis of my book kind of came from, because I do this in class. This is kind of how I teach class, and it's a somewhat jovial, I think, hopefully lighthearted kind of exploration. But I think there's really things we can learn from these clips if we have maybe the right person or the right circumstance where we can kind of stick these together. And so I could talk about that a little bit more as we go along there. But anyway, that's kind of the premise of where my book kind of came from. So I want to talk a little bit in maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes that we have here before I open up for more questions, to talk about what I've kind of inserted, which I call the successful model of entrepreneurship. So as we look outside, we look external and realize, okay, what are some of the trends? What are the things that people need? What are the opportunities that exist out there? We also need to combine that with ourselves, with our own experiences, with our own abilities, and with the things in which we are interested in order to make a truly successful entrepreneurial endeavor. And so, what I like to start with is you as the individual. And I know the Entrepreneurship Plus and Effectuation model really starts with you as an individual. And that's really where it should start, is what are the things that you can do exceptionally well? What are the experiences you have? What are the expertise that you have? And talent doesn't necessarily have to be something you're born with. It's something maybe you've developed over time, or again, as you've had a job, something you've become much better at. But it's those things that you can do, starting there with what you can do, because that gives you a much better advantage over someone who can't do that. And then conversely, if you're trying to enter into an industry where you have no experience, no insight, no expertise, the learning curve and what you have to overcome, the disadvantage you have to overcome, is typically very monumental. Not that it can't happen, but you're already at a disadvantage to those who have been in the industry, who've had the experience, who know a lot better kind of what's going on. Now, maybe you, if you're very creative, you can disrupt that industry, but it's obviously typically a very uphill battle. And so particularly for entrepreneurs starting out, I like to have them start with something where they have some expertise, something they can do very well. The next item in this is your passion, something you want to do. So that combines with your talent of what you can do, but something that you truly, truly want to do. Why might this be important? Why do you think that passion is important when I talk about building a successful entrepreneurial endeavor? What does passion do to just simply something that we're able to do? I'd like to look at the chat for some thoughts here. What's the difference, I guess, between something that you do and do very well, or something that you're truly passionate about? So we have, because you hit roadblocks and the urge to quit is massive unless you're passionate about it. Passion doesn't make you tired. It really motivates. The driving force. This is excellent. So the idea, how they say is, hey, if you're doing something you passionate or you love to do, you're not doing, you never work a day in your life. So they say if you're doing something you love to do, you never work a day in your life. That might be a little bit idealistic, but I think you're hitting it right on the head. There's a lot of long, lonely nights in the world of entrepreneurship, and days, honestly. And so if you're just doing something just to do it, if you don't have that passion, if you don't have that drive, you don't have that motivation to go that extra mile, sometimes you might give up and quit. And that oftentimes is the only difference between successful entrepreneurial endeavors and those that aren't successful, is simply the drive and the determination to give it one more chance, to give it one more try. So it really keeps that driving force and that motivation. I think the other part of passion, and I didn't necessarily see this in the chat, but it could be some things that you're thinking about. Here we go, interest. So I see Yasmin mentions interest. So the things that I'm passionate about, I think about. I think about when I wake up. I think about when I'm in the shower. I think about when I watch Seinfeld, whatever it happens to be. Those things that I'm passionate about, I'm constantly thinking about them because it's my interest. It's something I really enjoy. And therefore, I'm going to find innovation. I'm going to find creative solutions. I'm going to find these trends and opportunities that exist in the marketplace and capitalize on those. If it's something that I just have no interest in or never even think about, it's oftentimes difficult to even see where those opportunities lie or exist, or even have that motivation or that desire to do so and come up with something that's truly better, faster, cheaper than what others are doing. Now, the next part of the model, thank you for your participation and thank you for those ideas. I think you're spot on with your perspectives. The next one, part of the model, is the idea of a need, of what people will value. Because if we go back, if we just have a talent and passion, the intersection of those is a hobby, right? If it's something you do well and you like to do it, that's more of a hobby. At some point, and I hate to be capitalistic about this, but this is a business course, we need to get paid for it, right? We need to create something that people will pay us for, such that we can create a long-lasting, successful, thriving, sustainable business enterprise. And so we have to then understand what the market wants. and be able to provide that. And again, if we have the talent, we have a head start to other people, we have that passion where we're going to identify and think about and come up with creative solutions, then we combine that then with people's needs. And that's a lot of times where those trends are coming in the marketplace. And by combining all of those things, then now we're kind of on that road. Now, the last one that I enter in is what I call conscience, or things that we should do. Now, certainly this can easily fall into a discussion of ethics and morals, which might be a little bit subjective, right? What you feel is acceptable versus what I feel might be a little bit different. There might be even legal issues here. But when I think about success and I think about sustainability of long-term success, taking advantage of people, doing things that we are kind of are morally questionable, or that we're not really comfortable about doing, that I think is uneasy. It leaves us with a sense of dread. It maybe leaves us with a sense of we're actually doing something that's not right. And that's not then what I call success or long-term happiness. So if you think about our pandemic, for example, I know in the United States, there were unfortunate examples of people who hoarded things like toilet paper, who hoarded things like wipes, hoarded masks, and then sold them at very high rates. So they bought them for $10 and they were selling them for $100 because they knew people needed those things. Now, some people say, hey, that's very entrepreneurial. That's actually really smart to recognize an opportunity and be able to capitalize on that. But during a pandemic, when people are losing jobs, when they're losing their lives, to exploit those kind of opportunities and take advantage of people by selling something that you bought for $10 for $100, I think a lot of people might question the ethical nature of that, the moral fortitude of that. And actually, in some places, that actually is illegal as well. And so that's why I kind of put this in here, where if we're able to create value in a way that people will recognize and that will sustain, such that we're not coming into moral or legal types of issues, that's, I think, much more of a great place to be. And so that's why I add that in here. So what I put in the center then is what I call the ultimate zone of success. Now, you can tell that I came up with this myself because it's not very flashy. It's not very creative in some of the terminology. But I think all four of these elements are really necessary for us to truly be happy and successful in a sustainable manner, in a long-term manner, as we embark on our entrepreneurial journey. If we're missing any one of these, now we could be short-term successful, and we could even actually be doing something that can provide a lot of financial success. But for example, if we miss out on the passion, if we're not doing something we truly enjoy doing, then it's hard for me to think of that as really truly long-term happiness and long-term success from that perspective. So anyway, this is kind of my successful model of entrepreneurship. So I want to bring this again personally to me a little bit of how this relates to my book. And so again, I've kind of shown you kind of what it is. In there, I basically present entrepreneurial principles. So for example, the pestle model, the sources of innovative ideas. And then I put links. I actually put, if you have a digital version, there's the URL where you just push the button. It takes you to YouTube and you can watch that video. Or I have a QR code in the actual print version. So you just use your cell phone to read that QR code. And as long as it's connected to the internet, then you can actually watch that clip. So it's a way to, again, combine, I call it a multimedia approach to learning entrepreneurship, taking the text, the written stuff, I put those visuals, those fancy visuals that you saw there, those graphics, and then I combine it with the YouTube videos that I edited to kind of get to a certain time limit. That's kind of the premise of the book. So how did I come up with this kind of idea? So when I look in the world and I think about this, okay, the startup of Seinfeld, I look at the world of entrepreneurship. How many people are experts in entrepreneurship? There's actually quite a lot, right? Your instructors, the people who you're learning about entrepreneurship. There are a lot of people who know a lot about entrepreneurship. Maybe not at the PhD level, maybe they haven't actually experienced entrepreneurship themselves, but there are quite a few people who know quite a bit about entrepreneurship. If we think about the other side, how many people in the world know a lot about Seinfeld? Actually, quite a few. It's at least in the United States, I know it's one of the most popular sitcoms TV shows. It hasn't been on for over 20 years, but a lot of people around the world love it. And this is actually, if you talk about trends and kind of looking outside, one of the reasons I started my book now is because in January 2021, Netflix has bought the rights to Seinfeld. And so it will be streaming on Netflix. And so I figure that's going to open up the audience a lot more. And there's going to be a lot more people interested in perhaps experts on Seinfeld coming in the new year. So I want to make sure my book was at least out there. So when they're looking for content about Seinfeld, they could find it. So if I look at these two populations individually, there's actually a lot of people out there who could do that. And so where's my value add? But if I put those together, how many people are PhDs in strategy and entrepreneurship, have a very high level of knowledge and experience and expertise, learning about entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, teaching entrepreneurship? And how many of those people are also experts in Seinfeld, who've seen them a lot and can recognize the intersection of those two places? Turns out there aren't that many people in the world who can do that, for better or for worse, right? I actually did meet one other PhD who's a big fan of Seinfeld, but to my knowledge, there's one who's actually written a book about this, and that's where I put myself in. So I call myself the Seinfeld Sensei. Sensei means teacher in Japanese, and so I've kind of inserted myself in what I perceive to be an opportunity in the world of entrepreneurship and Seinfeld. Those two worlds have not really existed in this manner together. And so that was the opportunity that I found based on, again, my talents, my passions. Now, does the world need a book about Seinfeld? Probably not, but hopefully people will value it, and to the extent that they'll want to buy the book or at least experience the book or whatever it happens to be. It is available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And so it's starting to get out there, starting to gain some popularity. And again, this is something I feel very comfortable with. I have no conscience or any, conflict there. I think it brings knowledge and some joy and some happiness, some laughter into people's lives. To me, I think that's an ethically sound thing to do. And so again, that's where my opportunity has come. My entrepreneurial opportunity has come, and that's where this book then has came in the fact that I've been doing this for years. I've been, teaching entrepreneurship for over 10 years now. And I started slowly then introducing these Seinfeld clips to my students. Sadly, I'm getting to the age where a lot of my students have never seen Seinfeld. They were born after it was over. And so that kind of hurts me a little bit, pains my heart somewhat. But if I do nothing but teach people about entrepreneurship, about Seinfeld, then that's something as well. I wanted, though, to teach them a little something about entrepreneurship as well. But because this was something I was already doing, so the question came up of risk, for example. If nobody buys this book, if it's a complete failure, now I self-published this, so I did have to spend a little bit to invest in some of the marketing and some of the graphic design and those kinds of things. But I did it on a pretty small budget. So there's a little bit of financial expenditure to get this book made. But even if nobody buys it, this is my day job. This is what I do on a regular basis. I teach about entrepreneurship, and then I use these Seinfeld clips along with that. So to me, I saw no risk there, because even if nobody buys this, now I have a better class. I can teach my class in a more effective way because now all the videos are edited, all the materials tied together. It's very easy for me to include this in my regular teaching. And so I really saw no downside of that. And so if I were to give a little bit of advice, is find something in your own job, right? In your own current environment that you already are doing exceptionally well, and try to improve upon that. Maybe create a secondary job or something on the side that already supports and reinforces what you are currently doing in your occupation. And then as that we call it a side hustle, as that second job then starts to build in popularity, build in acceptance, build in maybe potential and profitability, then perhaps you can decide whether you want to pursue that full time. But in the way that I've done it, again, I'm not going to quit my job and just sell this book at this point. It hasn't reached that level yet. But by doing this book, I've actually made my job a little bit better. And so there's kind of synergy that goes on there. And so I essentially have nothing to lose by doing this book. But it's a way for me to kind of get my name out there, get myself out there, market myself a little bit. And just kind of do something again that's a little bit unique, and it really combines again my talents, my passions. Hopefully, it's something that the market needs, and will kind of get us to where we need to be with that. So I see we're about 10 before the hour. I'll just stop here at this point and then open the floor to any questions, some discussion. I can go on and on and on. If we don't have any questions, I certainly can share some things as well. But I just want to start off and kind of open up for questions here, if anyone has any. So we have a question here that says it's a little bit off topic, but that's totally fine. Pursuing a career in strategic management, very difficult to get into good consulting firms like BCG, McKinsey. I agree. Recommending for people like me. So somebody living in Bangkok, but from Nepal. So careers in strategic management, there's lots of ways to get there, right? You have these kind of big firms to do this, but you don't necessarily have to do it with a big firm. And so what I would say, and I don't know what your current occupation is, but I would say start doing what you're doing and do a little bit of consulting on the side. Find people who need your own consulting work and get some experience that way. Start small and then see again, is it something that you really want to pursue? And you might actually start doing it for somebody and realize, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I don't enjoy doing this at all. And so, and better to learn that now than try to follow one of those kinds of things. But the idea that the career paths are not set, right? You might have to be very entrepreneurial in the way you approach those particular professions. And so maybe it's doing something on the side now as you're a student. Or talking to people who are doing something that you want to do, because there's big consulting firms and there's small consulting firms. And so maybe going to talk to the small consulting firms and asking people how they got to where they are. And then kind of backtrack that and look for opportunities and experiences to do that. But just because, we can't follow a path that's destined for somebody else doesn't mean that we can't create that path ourselves. And that's really kind of what entrepreneurship is all about. So I say find people who are doing what you want to do, talk to them, and get some insight and advice to figure out exactly how they're doing what they're doing and how they got to be doing what they're doing, and kind of figure it out from there. So I know people raising their hands. So go ahead, please. Yes. Other questions?
You can ask question, Nabil, please. Remsha, you can go ahead, please.
Nabil, you can unmute yourself. Rimsha, please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. I just had a question that when a person has a business idea, how well planned out is it supposed to be before you officially start the business? Because there are definitely going to be roadblockers. So how you decide where the starting point is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say, if you start with something you already have a starting point. So if you are solving your own problem, you already have one customer who needs that solution, and that's yourself. And what the goal is then to find as many people as possible who have that same problem that you're trying to solve, and go talk to them. So many times people want to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And so you want to validate, and this is when I talk about minimizing risk. So if you've identified a problem, perhaps from your own life or from someone else's life, find out what the source of that problem is. Go talk to those people. And that should then give you on the right path of, okay, what either they might already have an idea for a solution, or they might know of other solutions that exist that aren't solving their problem. And that only comes from interviewing. That only comes from talking to people who share that problem. And the more you understand what that problem is, the better your solution is going to be. And then as you come up with solutions, and the more you talk to, then once you kind of come with a solution, go back and talk to those people and say, hey, would this solve your problem? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this solve this, and this, and this? Anyway, constant feedback, I think, is the best way to do that. Then once you start hearing the same answers, people keep telling you either they've found the same problem, or the solution that you've provided seems to have some popularity and seems to work, at that point, then I would pursue actually fixing the problem, actually starting a business around that particular solution. But I think it should only come after a lot of customer interviews and a lot of getting that feedback and making sure you're on the right path before you invest a lot of time, effort, energy, money going down the wrong path.
Okay,
Hopefully
so
that
can I
answers your
ask?
question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, Scott.
Yes, hello.
You talked about the element of passion in the model for entrepreneurship. So, is there something that I don't have passion about, but I see a great opportunity in it? You know, it's something like some people love programming, some people hate programming, but some people are neutral. I mean, they don't have any opinion. They just know that what the programming is. So, the people who hate will never go at that side. But as a neutral point of view, if I see a great opportunity somewhere which I'm not very passionate about, so should I pursue for it or should I find something that I'm passionate about? Thank you.
Yeah, so sure, and that's a very good question. So certainly people are successful just following opportunities, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I shouldn't be the one telling you what you want to pursue or not. I should, and yeah, you should. If you find something that you want to pursue, I say go for it. All I will say is you're making it challenging on yourself by pursuing something about which you are not passionate. Because again, will that motivation be there for you? And maybe your motivation comes from just being successful or from solving a problem or whatever that inherent challenge might be. But will it give you the advantage you need in order to be thinking about it all the time? In order to be really coming up with something creative, that's something different that somebody else is, who is passionate about it, who is spending a lot of their time and effort. And so it's certainly possible to still be successful that way. I just think you're making it a little bit more difficult on yourself by following that particular path. And for me, there's something, now again, it all depends on your motivation. And if it's just simply being successful, however you define success, then more power to you. And I certainly support that. For me though, if I don't have that passion, it's really hard for me to feel satisfied and to feel excited and to feel energized about something that I'm not passionate about. My very first job, I was an accountant. So I was an accounting undergrad. And this is nothing against accountants, but it takes a special kind of person to be truly passionate about accounting. I was not one of those people. I did it. It was a job. I enjoyed it. I was promoted. I was reasonably successful. But when I left work, I didn't think about work until I was sitting at my desk the next day. And so I think I was a marginal employee. I gave my employer what they wanted, but nothing more. I wasn't creative. I wasn't innovative. It wasn't something that really fueled me. And I eventually got burned out and I was miserable. And so I changed paths and started doing other entrepreneurial types of things. So is it possible? Absolutely. And if you can do that, then, go for it and find what motivates you and do that. For me, I needed that passion. I needed that something that was really going to drive me and make it something that really makes it interesting and fulfilling. And that's kind of why I put that model together.
Yeah, Dr. Ahmed Nadeem Abbasi, please.
Yeah, I do. I'll just back to meeting. Sorry. So,
We can hear you, sir.
can you hear me? Okay. Very simple question because I was very impressed to see the last bullet, and that has created a lot of interest in the whole talk. So, can you please guide us that whenever we go to a person like myself, I'm a doctor and an oncologist, and I was trying to get maximum help from my teacher, Dr. Shahid Qureshi. We are very much impressed with him in the Pakistan.
Great.
He teaches us a lot. So the same, we are impressed with you as well, actually. And I'm your pupil. You are my teacher, so I have to respect you. But with the humanity things, I want to actually implement a system which is very well recognized in the United States, United Kingdom, where I personally lived in United Kingdom for 15 years. But when I try those here, it's so difficult. So then I have to take the help of the 5 principles of entrepreneurship and trying to implement it. So can you please share your ideas? Because when your last bullet, we need a little bit of, please, I humbly request you to elaborate on this, because now you are not gaining any money out of teaching the refugees.
Correct.
The same applies to me, and my other colleague of IB are helping me, who are in this course as well. And they are the first thing they ask me that what you want from us. And I really don't know how to answer this question.
Mm.
So please help me.
Sure. So, I mean, this is a broad topic and it's something that I'm just kind of scratching the surface on. But one thing that I found is I shifted, number one, I shifted from a topic approach to a process approach. So instead of, for example, instead of just teaching entrepreneurial finance and there's courses and there's everything top to bottom about finance, I think the most important thing is to get into the minds of the actual individuals, the entrepreneurs themselves, and see what they're going through. So now when I teach entrepreneurial finance, I teach it from a process. So if I'm starting out and I need $10, which in some of these places is a lot of money, I'm not gonna, if I learn about entrepreneurial finance, I learn about angel investors and I learn about venture capitalists, and I learn about banks and traditional banks and all those kinds of things. That's completely irrelevant to somebody who is living, on a dirt floor with no internal plumbing, where they're just trying to, buy an extra cow so that they can sell the milk at the marketplace, right? And that's actually one of the refugees I talked to. She owns one cow. She wants enough money to buy another cow. That's her entrepreneurial idea, right? So I teach about, okay, first of all, start with your personal savings. If you don't know about savings, here, let me teach you about saving, about making a budget. And then once you have some extra money, maybe you can do it yourself. Then maybe go to family and friends, or maybe there's microfinance or microcredit institutions, or maybe there's other ways. So anyway, it's really getting on the level of your students in this case, and not just throwing a bunch of academic knowledge out there. We professors were great at that. And I imagine you as an oncologist, right? You can tell me if I have cancer, you can use all kinds of medical terms and all of these things. But if I have cancer, I'm not understanding any of that, right? You need to break it down in terms that I can understand, that I can relate to, that I can digest. And that way, then we're on the same page. And so what I found with this, it's completely revolutionized the way that I approach entrepreneurial teaching. And to me, the best way is to go to those places. That's why I'm so disappointed with this pandemic for many, many reasons. But the fact that I couldn't go to Jordan and meet with these displaced refugees, the fact that I maybe can't go to Pakistan and meet with the entrepreneurs and really listen to them and understand, hey, what are your challenges? What are your issues? What's the process that you need to go through in order to be successful? If I don't understand that, it's going to be very hard for me to really help them and help them change their lives. And so to me, the best advice that I could possibly give is get yourself on the level of your students, of those refugees and the people you're trying to help, and then create a model, create a system that they can use that makes sense to them in order to be successful. Hopefully that helps. I know it's a long question or long answer to a short question.
Professor, we have Hazim Ali would like to ask.
Yes, please.
Hazim, please go ahead.
Hello, Scott. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so basically so you just highlight trends can also be so minuscule that the risks associated to working towards capitalizing on these trends can outweigh the potential benefits that we may gain from them. So in these situations, what do you suggest that we should pursue them? Secondly, I have another question, but can you answer this first?
So basically the question is, if the risk is higher than the benefits, what do we do? So that's probably not something you want to pursue. Again, it should all be, so we have a lot of choices of what it is we want to do. And if we find something, even if it's successful, that the benefit is not high enough for me to take that risk, usually we would say, try to find, now there's two things. Most people would say, stop, do something else. What I found talking to entrepreneurs though, and entrepreneurs are a special breed, right? You're a special group of people. Ask yourself, what can I do to minimize that risk? So if somebody else is looking at this and they say, okay, the risk is X and it outweighs the benefit, they're going to give up. Most entrepreneurs that I talk to say, yes, but they don't have what I have. They don't have the solution that I have. They don't have the partnerships that I have. They don't have the resources that I have. And so I see that risk differently. I see myself being able to minimize that risk or to change that risk such that the benefit will outweigh it, and it will actually make it easier then for me to succeed. And so if you can't do that, then I would say find something else that's really something that's going to be more beneficial for you and more the likelihood of success. But never forget how much you can influence that risk and what you can do to minimize that risk in order to be successful.
Okay, next we have Vase.
Hello. My question was, you spoke about you have your day job as a teacher, and then you publish this book. I think that's a great idea, using pop culture to sort of appeal to the your students or whatever. So my question is, how does one decide if you should pursue what you've done like on the side, and give it your all, meaning like, put all your eggs in one basket and explore its like go for like the stars and explore its true potential, basically.
Sure. So I think the easy answer is it's going to be individual, right? So you have to ask yourself, what are my goals? What are my objectives? What do I want to accomplish? And then see which path is going to help you accomplish those particular goals. So I can answer from my own personal perspective. I would love to take what I do and kind of broaden the audience. So right now, this is a fantastic opportunity. So I have an opportunity to share a little bit of my insights, a little bit of my expertise, a little bit of my perspective with an audience which I normally never would. When I'm at ASU, I'm pretty much teaching the students in the class at Arizona State University, and that's it. So I would love to broaden my impact, and hopefully something I say can actually make somebody's life better. If the book is that, then that's great. I'm maybe creating some online courses. Maybe I travel and I speak. Maybe I give workshops, whatever it happens to be. But for me, until those side jobs either help me accomplish what I want to accomplish better than what I'm doing at Arizona State, or allow me to do something that I can't do at Arizona State, I'm going to stay doing what I can do, because ASU provides me a lot of opportunity, provides me that platform where I can do what it is that I want to do and accomplish those goals and objectives. But whether it be financial, either I sell enough books where it actually becomes, on par, where I'm making more doing my second job, my side hustle, than I am in my current job. Well, that's a very easy financial analysis that I can look at and talk about cost benefit. I can do that pretty easily. Or if what it is that I truly want to pursue, I can only do that with my side hustle. Therefore, then it might give me the opportunity to leave what I'm doing currently and pursue that. But a lot of it's just going to come down to your goals and objectives, and then doing that analysis of saying which of these two things, or maybe I can do both at the same time to help me accomplish what my goals and my objectives happen to be. That's the process that I'm going through right now. And so I haven't sold enough books to quit my day job. If I did quit my day job, I would lose the opportunity to be involved in things like Education for Humanity. And so staying at ASU is allowing me to pursue those options. But maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, something will present itself where it's now a better opportunity, and I'll have to reevaluate at that point.
Professor, we have last question from Mark Ismail.
Okay.
And can close the session.
Yes.
Mas, go ahead, please.
I can't hear you. I see that you're talking and that you're unmuted, but I can't. Maybe try again. No.
Mas, can you unmute yourself, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sir. So first of all, thank you for this amazing session. We really learned a lot. So, sir, I would like to ask that what's your opinion on the family businesses? What do you think? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Because I'm someone who's part of who just joined a family business, which is in market for around 40 years. But we actually are facing issues in sustainability, and there's some generation gap as well. So, what's your what is your opinion about family business, and what advice would you give to a family business who like to sustain itself in a market as well? So what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, great. So what the benefits, I'll be the upside. The benefits of having a family business is you already have an established market, you have established customers, you have established products. So a lot of the stuff you don't have to start from scratch. And that's a great advantage because you have people, you have mentors, you have people who can help you and guide you along the way. And you have a reputation, you have all of those things. That's a fantastic way to start because you already have a head start. The challenges, though, can be when you mix business and pleasure, as we call it, and personalities can go in there. So if you coming into business, first of all, people are going to question, why is Maz in this business? Is it just because he's related to the founder, right? Is it just because he's part of the family? And if you don't have anything to add value, if you aren't doing something where you can provide something that's better or faster or cheaper, something creative, something else, you're going to have an uphill battle because people are going to question why you're even involved. It's what we call nepotism, right? You're only getting this because you are related to somebody. And that's not a great position to be in. And so you need to come up with something, find something, and you don't need to be, loud about it. You don't need to be in your face or insecure about it, but you should just find something you do extremely well. Again, I think it's still that successful model of entrepreneurship, I think still holds. Find something you do very well that you're passionate about, that your family business needs. And maybe you're in school doing that right now. Maybe it's you need to learn how to do finances better. Maybe you need to learn to do marketing better. Whatever it is, find a need that your family business has and fill that need. And by then you can actually, by doing that, you add value then to the entire process. And then you don't have any questions about that. But you have to understand, getting in business with your family, it can be awkward. Especially, so if you're borrowing money from family, for example, you're asking your family for money, and all of a sudden you take a vacation to the UK, or you buy a new Tesla or something, all of a sudden people are like, wait a second, what are you using this money for, right? And you have to explain that. So tomorrow in the United States, this is a little off topic, but we have what's called Thanksgiving. It's a holiday for us that the family, the tradition is to get together. This year, obviously, is a little bit different. But you get together as family and you have a big feast and you talk about what you're thankful for. Anyway, it's a great reason. It's a holiday for family to get together. Well, if you're taking that Tesla and all of a sudden your uncle comes to you and you're at Thanksgiving dinner, those Thanksgiving conversations become a little bit more awkward, right? And so you have to be able to be willing to separate the business from the family in a way that you can still coexist peacefully and lovingly and not let it be awkward when you get into business with family. So I've never done that yet. I don't have personal experience with that, but maybe growing up in the family business, you've learned how to successfully navigate those awkward conversations, those awkward situations. But to the extent that you can find something to which you can add value to your firm, just like you would add value to a customer you've never met before, and be entrepreneurial, I think you can be successful and hopefully find your own path.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Livengood. That was an amazing session. We have some comments from the participants. They're thanking you for the session and they're thanking you for very simple and clear answers, which will definitely help them in their business ideas as well as current ventures that they have towards growth. And most of the participants would also like to invite you to Pakistan and they would like to meet you in person and host you.
Well,
So
thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the insights. Sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but hopefully something I've said, maybe some spurred, some ideas. And again, I would love, as soon as things settle down a little bit and I'm able to, I would love to come visit Pakistan and meet with you. And good luck in your entrepreneurial journeys. Don't forget us little people as you become successful. And do the best that you can, and I know you'll do great. So thank you again very much for this opportunity. I know it's late there. Have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to our paths crossing in the near future.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, participants, for doing this with us, and thank you. I hope you have a good day ahead, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Take care.